Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of the Covenant Cast. I'm Zach.
I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Steven.
And today, we recap Star Wars Worlds. Well, this is normally when we would talk about what we've been doing all week, but I think all of us have been doing the same thing, which is FFG Worlds 2017, the first Star Wars edition.
Yeah,
so
Star Wars edition.
We're making it a whole episode, and so we have some things to
week.
talk about here.
All
Destiny,
right.
X-Wing, Star Wars LCG, Imperial Assault, what we did all week. So let's kick it off
Just
with
worlds in general.
Worlds in general. Favorite moments. I just want to hit some of these. I have one in particular that I want to get to, but what about you? What's your favorite moment from Worlds?
Well, my favorite moment is really more of a... It's not a moment, so I'm going to break the rules immediately.
What are you, Lucas?
there are rules, man. This isn't Nom. Yeah, right?
So this is my first ever Worlds, the first ever Worlds that Ben was there doing the majority of the work,
video work,
which meant that I got to hang back and talk to people, which was fantastic. And maybe even sometime in the future, I can now start entertaining the idea of actually playing games again at a tournament level.
Whoa!
So that's really exciting. So that was
big news.
My favorite thing about Worlds. My favorite moment. Actually, I ended up talking to Jay from Knights of Ren.
Okay, cool.
And he has some development experience for the Duelist.
That's
game.
right. He's doing the game.
Yeah, and it was absolutely fascinating to talk to him and hear his perspective on development, on balance, on just on design. Like, we had a nice long conversation, and I really thoroughly enjoyed that. Unfortunately, he had to leave to go catch his plane. But it was a really great conversation, and I love that kind of level of discourse that we were able to have.
That's awesome.
So that's probably number one favorite moment was that talking to him towards the end of Worlds.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
What about you?
Similar. So the coolest thing about Star Wars Worlds to me was that it was so, I guess, laid back comparatively. As Worlds has gotten bigger over the past few years, and you're smushing all these games together over a single weekend. I mean, the first one was, like 80 people? We were there with 80 or 90 folks?
And what felt like a garage.
Well, I think
it was a garage.
Yeah, so it was the old FFG
before the
event
event
center.
center, yeah.
It was the old one. It's a small one. And then it was actually next to that in like a warehouse area.
Yeah.
And I think there were like 70 or 80 Thrones players, and like that was Netrunner's first year, and they had like 40 players, and X-Wing's first year.
Everybody got a Star Wars core set too.
Everyone got a Star Wars LCG core set. It's like anytime you played a tournament, you thought about playing a tournament, they gave you a playmat.
Yeah.
It's like,
everybody.
hey, you thought about it, so playmat for you. Playmat for you.
Yeah, so it's quite a bit different now compared to like November, whenever we had all the games and all that was going on. You have, so for us, since we're recording gameplay footage we try to at least do every game that's there. Then a lot of times you have games on top of games, and so now you have to run around, and that means you have to bring twice the equipment to try to cover that, and a lot of times you don't have twice the equipment to like adequately do it, so you're running back and forth a little bit. And then on top of that, trying to get interviews, and so then and a lot of the designers traditionally are the people judging the tournaments, so now you're trying to find them on their lunch break and get them in the hall and these kinds of things. So it's just way better. There was way less to do, which meant there was a lot more time to, as you said, interact with people,
which was fantastic,
and get people like the designers talking about, Lucas, Caleb, Matt, those guys. We could actually get them in a controlled space and controlled environment because it's mainly just a work day for them, like Monday through Friday. So rather than trying to shove all of that in all at once, we're able to space it out. It was really nice. So on that note, one of my favorite moments was a number of positive interactions that seemed to flow in. And it's kind of like filling up the tank, I guess, in a way. Because you go to Worlds and it's not the internet, right? You actually get real faces and real people saying, I just want to tell you that I really enjoy your content, enjoy what you're doing, keep it up, thank you. And that is just such a meaningful interaction as compared to a comment that says, hey, keep it up, which is great too. But seeing the actual faces and the actual people
really
that
cool.
you're
really
affecting.
like getting that full form of communication where they're like, hey, that's really meaningful. I like what you guys are doing.
It's really great. And on top of that, you get like 100% positive comments.
People
who don't like you just don't say anything. Right? That's why it's very different from like
life
YouTube.
is so good, right?
It's like, oh, I don't have anything nice to say. I'll just move on. Whereas normally it'd be like, So that was really nice, seeing all of those people and meeting and getting all of that. It was really remarkable, like during the tournament, especially the Destiny tournament, just all of the really cool feedback.
That's one of the things that I was going to point out is that
ultimately.
like I saw all of those Destiny tables. Everyone was just having a ball.
They were having a great time.
They're just having a blast.
Speaking of people who were having a ball and also not having a ball, this is a very specific moment. It's my first game, the Destiny tournament. This is mind-blowing to me. So there's a Bala, I think it's Bala Trooper Night Sister kind of build. So we have a Bala with
Double
2 dice.
Trooper, right?
I don't remember.
I think it's Elite Bala.
Elite Bala Trooper Night Sister or something like that, or Tusken Night Sister or something weird. Anyway, you had like 4 +2 gun. So like +4 ultimately on the guns, +2 on this gun over here. So you're looking at +6 on the table. I've got no removal, I got no money. And the only thing left is the Night Sister, who rolls in and hits like a disrupt or whatever she has.
But she's got her ability.
And I was like, oh my gosh, you can reroll that 7 times. And I try to get a black gun, and like you've smoked Rey on like the second turn, and like the game is probably over for me. And I'm thinking, oh great, this is how my tournament's gonna go. These decks are just better than Qui-Gon Rey. So poor guy, awesome guy. Proceeds, and I think his name was Michael. See, you can't do this at Worlds. You can't start dealing with names because you'll get them wrong every time.
Yeah, that's very hard.
But rolls first time.
So you take a damage,
take a
reroll
damage,
a die.
Reroll, take a damage, reroll. Proceeds to do it 6 times. Nice.
This is such a big swing.
You got to do it. So in 6 rolls, not a single
but
black
it's now
gun.
taken 6 damage.
And now you're bought in, right? You're sunk cost. So you may as well just kill the Night Sister to get that final reroll to get the damage, and misses it the last time too. So that like literally is impossible. I mean, obviously not literally impossible, but the odds of him not hitting that over 7 rolls is remarkable. So I just kind of skated out of the first game thinking I just got incredibly fortunate. But that was a very memorable moment from the tournament. That definitely set the tone.
Nice.
I was like, all right, the force is with me today.
That's fantastic. Well, it's got to give you some just some wings.
Yeah.
It's like, well, anything can happen. And I'll say,
it's a dice game.
The more you play Destiny, the more you realize, in particular, it's like, it doesn't matter how far behind you are. Your opponent can literally roll blanks.
Never give up.
And so you just kind of keep going. So I think like you said, talking to people is fantastic at Worlds,
wonderful.
and getting to interact. That's actually one of the best parts. Maybe the best part is just those interactions in between rounds after the tournament. And there are a lot of just great moments that happen. For me, Steven and I were testing probably for about a month, leading up pretty extensively. And early on, he got in this Qui-Gon Rey deck. And he'd been building it and testing it, and like there were a couple cards like Close Quarters Assaults that were just, he'd roll like 4 melee in and be like, I'll discard your hand. It's like, this is great. So finding a bunch of little things, and like over time it was like got pretty consistent.
Cutting it binds is a big deal.
Cutting it binds, all things. And we had some weird moments where it was like, maybe we should test against Vader Raider, because that might be a good deck. And then we did, and it wrecked both of our decks for like 2 days straight. But anyways, we get to Worlds, and we're there testing on the first night. And we're playing
just a couple warm-up games.
Yeah, just to get the cobwebs out. Yeah.
And anyways, we're playing, and I had over that last week really tested my Han Rey deck. Like, I had gotten it there, like in the store against Tim, against Steven at his house, and just against the locals here, just really against Matt at home, like everywhere. And it just kind of become a different deck, right? It become just a much better deck. So we're testing in the hotel room. First game, we just kind of stomped Steven. It's like, yeah. Second game, stomped Steven. About 8 games in, every game, Steven's eyes are getting a little more shut. He's just like, almost getting like angry and tired at the same time.
That's exactly what was
like,
happening.
He's like, man, I'm so tired of this deck. So at some point, we're sitting there, and Steven just goes,
crosses his arms.
Crosses his arms, closes his eyes, smiles. He's just sitting there. I'm like, what is happening? And then he goes, I can tell he's like trying not to laugh. Like he's smiling, he's holding it in. He says, I have an idea. Pause. Dramatic pause. I need to start winning. Oh, it was killer. And then,
we just bowled over.
I was dying.
It was the depth of frustration where you've come out the other end and it's like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I got nothing. And then, we expected there to be a fair amount of Han Rey. And so him knowing that, it's like, man, I can't take a deck that's 0-10. Like, my odds are just not there. And so, anyways, I was playing the next day in Swiss, the first day, and he wasn't playing until the second day.
Okay.
And in the meantime, he was in what I would call existential crisis,
Yeah.
which is like
It's working on the combo deck
Yeah,
again.
it's like I need a deck that's not this deck.
Yeah,
that
I can't take this deck.
Yeah,
in there.
and then I played day one and like could kind of get a feel for the meta, and it was like, hey, there's some Hanrei, but like, not really. Like, I think you're fine. Your deck's
Yeah.
good against everything except Hanrei control. I'm like, I don't think there's going to be a lot of that, honestly. Maybe one. So you ended up on Qui-Gon Rey, but that moment where you're just like, I have an idea, and then just like holding in the laugh, because like it's both serious and
Yeah.
also not serious.
At the first, I thought I did have an idea. Like, I'm going to change X, Y, and Z, but then it quickly was like, I have nothing. I have nothing.
Oh, maybe if I put
I
these
just
two
need to
cards
start
in.
winning.
Yeah, you've got to start winning. That's so good. So let's talk about Destiny for a bit. Let's talk about the decks we ran and why we ran them.
Okay.
What were you on? We mentioned Qui-Gon Rey.
Yeah, I was
don't know
on-
why you made that choice.
I was on Qui-Gon Rey. We're going to do what? Destiny, X-Wing, and then actually LCG and Imperial Assault, right?
That's right.
So those of you listening, we're gonna get to all of it. So the Worlds Recap, this is where you and I actually participated most in the tournament scene. And I was doing Qui-Gon Rey simply because I love the deck. It's exactly where I like to be.
1.5.
1.5.
Tier 1.5. Maybe tier 2.
I want you to call a 1.5 player.
Well,
Yeah.
it's, for you, I think there's something to the challenge of taking a 1.5 or a tier 2 deck and still doing well with it.
Something,
Yeah.
Or something that someone has overlooked, right? Is that
Definitely.
you want to be on that frontier.
Now, sometimes, like, the thing that I really love playing is tier 1.
Like
that
that time you won
happens.
several Netrunner regionals in a row.
Yeah, that happened in Netrunner. That happens in the Greyjoy deck too. At the regional, it was
And
the
that's
same.
that's
It
the
just
glory-
happened,
glory
right?
time.
This is exactly the way I want to play this faction. The cards are all there, and it happens also to be extremely good. Like that does happen from time to time. But it's usually just I like the weird interactions or some different types of play styles. I like Qui-Gon Rey a lot because there's a lot of direct damage and it can adapt really well to changing circumstances. It can shield
ton
up
of like
and turtle.
non-die based damage, right?
Exactly, and it's got Rey on the discard side. Qui-Gon's ability can either protect or be offense, so I always love adaptable decks like that. You guys know that's why I like water things so much. So that's what I took. I ended up going 6-3, which I was extremely happy with. Made the second day and went 2-1 on the second day. Feel like I maybe could have got that second game that I lost on the second day. It was a really strange interaction that was happening. Like I had to deal with the reality of my opponent having a force throw and a Kylo's lightsaber. And I mean, the game went nowhere fast from the very beginning. Like you knew, because the first interaction was, I guess I'll take your battlefield to take the 2 shields, and his first action was intimidate the 2 shields. So it's like, oh great.
battlefield.
So you have
maybe
your
that kind of a
battlefield,
game.
and I don't have any advantage. Great, you had the card, right? So it was an uphill climb from the very beginning. It was a Jabba Dooku deck. I got Jabba off the
Didn't
board.
you like Kylo's lightsaber first thing too?
Yeah, it was his first
It's
upgrade.
like
was
take your shields and
lightsaber.
then make sure your shields are going to be irrelevant for the rest of the game.
It was wild. So it was really not in my favor, but I got to where Dooku was at like 6, I think, and Qui-Gon was 9. And I saw that he has his 2 Dooku dice he's going to roll in. I've got a Force Misdirection. He's also got, special on Kylo's could be a problem. Special on Force Throw could be a problem.
All problems.
So we're all doing this thing. I think he rolls in and kind of whiffs, right? And I'm like, all right, this is good. That gives me a chance to
moment of
get in. So I have rolled in as well, and I turn one of my dice to a melee use the Force. Now I have a chance with a Qui-Gon dice. I can choose a 2 melee or a 1 melee. The problem is if I choose that 2 melee, that Force throw is going to kill me.
If he throws that 2 at
If he
you.
throws the 2 at me, but he doesn't have a Force throw on the board currently. So
And you need the damage.
yeah, so I'm thinking, okay, well, I need to show melee damage to Force Misdirect, and then I need him to reroll into like just sticks, like melee damage. Then I need to Force Misdirect it away, and then I
Alright.
need to do as much damage as possible, potentially the game this turn. I could
Yeah,
potentially kill
there's
him
a way
turn.
this goes well
If I
for you.
reroll it a bunch
Yeah.
of times, he doesn't have control. And as it turns out, I change it to a 2 instead of a 1. Okay. And then he rerolls, and he hits like 3 melee damage, and then the Force Throw special. And there's nothing I can do to control the Force Throw special, so
Man.
I'm looking at it like, oh no. There were some different lines of play. Like I could have resolved the melee damage, but then his melee damage kills me back because I can't misdirect. So I have to choose to misdirect. Hope he doesn't see the Force though. He Force throws the 2 into me.
Nobody doesn't see the
That's
wind
great,
that is
yeah.
immediately present on the board.
Yeah, but that was an incredible
true
moment.
misdirection.
If I had gone to 1 melee, I wonder if I could have squeaked out of that game. And
That's crazy.
that's the high level. By the end of that tournament, people were playing on that level, and I feel like I was playing on that level. I learned so much just playing the deck against a variety of good players.
This is the first real major Destiny tournament. The first time the meta is seen out in the open in front of everybody.
In like a non-regional based way. There haven't been regionals, but it really is the first big. And it's really cool hearing you talk like that, because I felt like the same way with Han Rei, which I've played so many times.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
But there's still these little moments of insight where it's like, I could use the Force into a 2, but had you done a 1, you actually give yourself
it's actually
a
an
chance,
advantage, yeah. You have a chance to win.
Which is just a little thing, but like, because how often do you get in that situation where that 2 will kill you if they roll the Force Throw special? You have the opportunity to choose a 1 or like, the number of times that circumstance pops up, it's probably like, you need the melee for misdirect, you don't need to take the 2. They have it's
off
crazy.
book, as we would say.
Yes.
And it's like, if you don't go with the 2 melee damage, then are you 1 damage shy of killing him that turn?
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, it's stressful. Sometimes, I tell you what, in Destiny, sometimes you just need your opponent to brick out. just roll nothing.
Yep.
And you have to play to your outs that way, where it's like, this is going nowhere for me. I need to do the highest risk plays possible and hope that they just brick out, and they do a lot. Like those dice are really fickle.
And I think we've talked about like the onside kick in football, and I think it's the same when you realize that you're behind. It's like in the top 16, I had a game against Leia
Akbar, the classic.
And it's like, I know it's a trap, can just kill me. And it's like,
hope you don't have it.
Well, no, it's like, I just was unwilling.
Yeah, just don't play guns.
It's like, Han's not rolling in. I'm just waiting.
Yeah.
It's like, I will literally not, I will lose, but I will not lose that way. And just knowing, right? Knowing
Let's put that in your head.
That's like, it's so risky. It's like going for 2 when you can just keep scoring field goals.
That's right.
It's like going for it on 4th down. It's like, we can just kick a field goal.
Yeah.
You want to get a point or 2 of damage in and then just pass the turn? Let's do it. Let's do it. Anyways, so that's how.
I will also say this.
Yeah.
Of all the tournament games that I played, I was left more energetic at the end of these tournaments than I ever have been. I was not like brain burned out where I just had to go lay down for like a couple hours.
You were excited.
I was excited. It was super fun.
You were playing more Destiny that night.
It was super fun. It was
and the next day.
Exciting. It was light enough to be socially enjoyable. I didn't have anybody who was particularly angry or aggressive about die rolls or whatever. Set the tone early, say some jokes, talk about, like I'll roll out like 3 blanks like, perfect. That kind of stuff. It just kind of sets the tone there. And everybody was incredible. So I'm happy to see that at least thus far, the community forming around Destiny, and especially the tournament scene, is so positive, even with it being a collectible game, and even with it being a game of complete heartbreak.
Yeah.
And X-Wing has done the same, right? It's not collectible, but you have dice that sometimes just can brick out, and you have to not get upset about it.
I wonder if basically coming to terms with the potential for that heartbreak is almost what makes that possible.
Maybe it trains you for it?
Yeah, it's like, well, sometimes it doesn't go your way. And like, you can't be upset about it.
Yeah, throwing rocks.
So.
I actually think it speaks very highly to Destiny. I know I was impressed to see you guys playing Destiny on the last day as we were waiting for the X-Wing finals to start.
Yeah.
Because usually, at some point in playing a tournament, you're like, all right, I just need a break from this game. But you guys were both, by your actions, showing, no, we want more. Like, I would like to continue to play
that's the best thing about it.
Yeah, which is really, really cool. I think it speaks very highly of the game.
It's light enough to be continuously enjoyable over and over. It's hit a crazy mix of things. We don't say it lightly when we talk about how great the game system is, right? Say what you will about the collectible format and its ups and downs, and those critiques are very relevant. But if you're just taking it as a game and as a system, I would love to see that mechanic imported to any and everything.
Yeah.
I would love. It's just the perfect mix of
it
risk.
reminds me a lot of X-Wing actually, in the way that you can really skin this in any way that you wanted to.
Can't skin it in taxis for Zach. Apparently, he said he wouldn't be interested if it was car chases or police cars. You remember you said it in the podcast.
That's fair.
I think I'd still play it if it was police cars. It'd be super fun.
Well, there's definitely some universes I would absolutely play it in. Police cars is a maybe. If there's a Star Wars variant,
what a
I'll
universe!
Let's play the police car card game or the peanut butter card game.
There was a police card game that was quite good. Anyhow.
SWAT.
I don't
What about you? You almost went all the way.
Almost. Stories of almost.
Oh yeah, man.
I was playing Hanrei. I've been playing Hanrei since the game came out in December. It's like a back burner, like, oh, Ray's really good, then you should probably do this.
You're the best person. We're a pretty good combo, actually, when we're playing the same game, because you're interested in finding, you are able to spot the thing that's kind of busted from day one and then just like bust it. Whereas I'm like going to, wade out into the card pool and maybe come back with like, hey, you should be playing this card.
which you did, actually,
which happens,
a couple of times.
Yeah.
Like, I think the last one you did is you texted me. I was in Portland for Tim's wedding, and you texted me and you're like, hey, have you ever thought about Ray's staff? And it's
It's like seems obvious now, right?
Oh, you mean the card that makes Ray like literally 5 times better?
Yeah.
That would be good. And it's control. That's weird.
Yeah.
Kind of fits the theme.
Fits the theme, right?
Yeah, so I was playing Hanrei Control, as I called it, which really means that I took a lot of cards out that a lot of Hanrei players were using. Things like Jetpack.
Mm-hmm.
Classic example. It's just this mentality of like, I need to get upgrades on the board. And the real theory started several months ago when I realized I won a game using Darth Vader and Night Sister, and I drew no upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, that's weird. That really makes you ask some questions. So then the next obvious thing that you do is you say, I'm going to build a deck with 0 upgrades.
Yeah,
So
you got to go there. Yeah.
I built a...
Yeah, defying your own deck building advice, by the way.
Yeah, from that video,
might add.
right?
Just
Yeah, well,
setting everybody up for failure there,
Well,
Zach.
just so we're aware, that was a guide, and I said in most decks, this is it. I went back and watched that because I was like on an 8 upgrade deck, and I was like, I just need to go make sure I didn't say anything too aggressive in this video. And I feel like I
Excellent. That's
fairly
good.
stated it when
That's
you're
good.
first building a deck.
Yeah.
These are the tips that you should follow.
That's
If you haven't
the-
seen that video and you're looking to build a deck, it's like even just like have 2 colors, have just some fundamentals, which is what it was. But you got to be able to break the fundamentals, right?
That's right. Once you learn it, we learn the rules and then break the rules.
So anyways, I built a Vader deck with 0 upgrades, and I was winning a lot of my games.
Well.
Because the reality is that the characters do most of the damage in Destiny.
That's true.
Like,
Especially the Vader style character.
especially Vader
It's got
or
a 3 on
or
it.
Han, he's got a 2 and a 3, right? And Han's gonna do as much or more than like, I don't know, a jetpack. Jetpack can add 3, but
Cost 2 though.
eventually I found myself in a couple situations with Han playing a lot with it, which is I would a lot of times have that jetpack die left over because my opponent would get rid of the other dice.
Yeah, classic.
And then
Classic maneuver.
I was like, well, what can I do with the +2s on Rey and the +2 and 3s on the jetpacks when I have them? And I was like, disarm.
There it is.
Disarm was really good against Django, which there was like none of at
None.
Worlds.
None Django.
But I just started realizing it was like, man, I almost never want jetpack. Like, why is this in my deck? Why am I spending the time on it? The second thing I realized is that Han's 3 costs some money.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times players will put an upgrade on Rey, whatever it is, roll in, do their turn. Next turn, put another upgrade on Rey. And it's like you keep having no money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started playing differently, which is I would just replace the one on Rey. I would almost never put a second one on Rey. And that gave me money to actually like roll Han in. I could roll the 2 3s and just resolve them both, which is a lot of 6 damage. It's 1.5 a character. Then it was like, well, now there's a lot of times because I'll roll the 2s on Han. And it's like, now I just have money. And I don't need these upgrades over here, so like, what can you do with money?
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Everything.
I know what you can do. I have an idea. Let's either do more damage or make my opponent not be able to do damage.
Yeah.
So I ended
Seems
up
safe.
on a very control-heavy deck, and it basically allows you to either save the money for control or spend the money to resolve Han's dice. And just the number of cards that you ask yourself, right? Because it also, the other thing that happened is the meta adjusted and started killing Han first, which I think is the right, at least in that version of the deck, the right thing to do. Once that started happening, it's like now Jetpack is triple dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like now it really is bad at the end of the game. So really just honed it and
Got those mind tricks in there.
Had
Your favorite card.
Had to get the mind tricks. And you actually have the money to do it, and no one is ready for mind trick out of Han Rey.
No.
It's like I was playing against Nick, who is the one that knocked me out of the top 4, in the cut in the Swiss, and had a moment where he had 11 dice in the pool, and I was like mind trick, and he went. Just was not ready for a mind trick, which was.
I mean, you get
which
6
was just
dice.
great. Yeah,
you know?
it was incredible.
You get 6 dice for 2. That's unbelievable.
Pretty good.
It was good. So looking back, though, quick question I'd like to know from you: is there anything you'd change about your deck now that you've played a gazillion games?
Man, no. No, I think that's about as good as I could possibly do with that deck. Honestly. And the real MVP was Frozen Wastes.
The Battlefield?
Yeah. I mean, that was what turned a lot of those matchups to my favor. I got that a lot more than I thought. And most of the time, the traditional thinking on Qui-Gon Rey is, I want shields, therefore I will either choose my opponent's battlefield or I'll take Echo Base as mine, as I get a shield. But Echo Base doesn't really matter. I mean, if I think about, okay, I can get a shield and potentially do 1 damage or get just a legit shield, or I can remove a character die. When you look at what that actually means in the matchups that you're not having a lot of success in, like Vader Raider, getting rid of a 3 damage Vader die
better than a shield.
on your way out is a lot better than a single shield.
Weird.
And it certainly changes the game when you have a Han or a Rey deck of any kind. Like, you should be checking out the battlefield before anything aside from another Rey deck.
And even then, as long as the Rey dice are what's left, you're okay losing that when your opponent
Yeah,
comes
exactly. Sometimes they're just kind of garbage anyway. So it becomes I will say I love how that battlefield changes the game for both players. You immediately now, both players have an immediate control option available. So when you're willing to pull that lever, as compared to like, I have 3 dice on the table, I could either have 2 rerolls or check out right now and take that 3. Really fascinating decision. So I wouldn't change anything. I honestly think that was it. That was
Nice.
the shot.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think, and it's really fantastic that you went 6-3.
I was
I
very
didn't realize
pleased
it until we
with that.
got back, but that's actually a single game away from the cut.
Yeah, I was very pleased with it.
And then you unfortunately also had low strength schedules.
I
so you were
did. I was the
bounced down.
lowest of them, the 35th place with 6 points.
Ooh, squeaking in there.
Yeah, I think some of them
But-
went up as high as like 25 or 24.
Yeah, I think for me the thing that really I would have changed is based on the meta, because there was way less Django than I expected, way less Han Rey than I expected,
Yeah.
and far more Vader Raider than I could
Yeah.
ever have
and
thought
way more, I
possible.
mean, a ton of just like the muddling around Phasma decks,
Well,
right?
it's like
They're just floating
Phasma
around.
Politic Trooper or apparently it's really popular in Minnesota.
Okay,
Which is
that's
where
good to
Worms
know.
is at.
Yep.
But also the like 2 Trooper Night Sister Politic deck. Like those 2 things were just far
Yeah,
more than expected.
just the
Actually,
guy.
one of our locals, Philip Gamble, slotted in a single
Thermal detonator.
detonator.
Yeah.
And I was like, because with Jakku you can loop it, and it's like against those 3 or 4 character decks, that's actually genius.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you want three dudes? Have 9 damage. And it's like, oh, you want 9 damage again?
Yeah,
Let's do
that's
it.
tough.
So that was really cool. I think because of that, though, because of the meta, there's a couple changes I would make. One would be I had a disarm that did nothing for me. Because,
Still
like,
nothing, yeah.
Just the matchups.
I'm glad I dropped that patience as well.
Yeah.
It was
You were,
we have
really
our
wanted that in.
we have our favorite cards, but
But this arm is just like consistently with Ray's staff, I was using Ray's dice. Without the jetpack, my Han dice were going away.
Mhm.
So it was just like, I'm never going to spend 1 to nuke an attachment. Against Django in particular, when they get that jetpack or holdout blaster on Django, that slows them down enough to like make that match winnable.
yeah.
But otherwise,
There's no Django.
It was just dead. And I think
is
obviously,
weird.
if anyone's witnessed my top 4 games, the risk
And exercise and variance.
So yeah, I mean the thing about this is I took a deck with 8 upgrades, knowing that, and I said this before the tournament. My biggest fear in that tournament was the Swiss rounds, not the cut.
Yeah.
Right.
And part of that was because of my deck, which is I know that I can just drop a game. Like I see no upgrades. My opponent has a pretty good hand.
Yeah, because you're running light on upgrades. So.
Yeah, and so, but the reality is, I thought even with that, I can probably go 7-2 and make the cut. And then once I go 7-2, now it's best of 3.
Yeah.
So like now the exchange I'm making is if I have 1 or 2 bad games in the cut, I can still win the other 2 games outright. And that panned out all the way until I got to top 4, which is when I had 2 games in a row where I just didn't see upgrades.
Yeah.
Like
it was.
and when I
it
did,
was remarkable, actually.
it was bad. I lost the first game, and that was actually we're gonna post these games really way closer than it should have been, and it was because of all that control.
Yeah.
And the second game, my first hand before I mulliganed was literally second chance, 1 with a force, riposte.
Yeah. Perfect. Right.
And it was like I had lost, so I was gonna choose my battlefield, and it's like these are actually 5 dead cards.
Yeah. The
And
worst cards.
Just
possibly
if my opponent could go through and pick my hand, this is the worst. And so I mulliganed that, and then got cards back, and it was just like
Nothing. I was watching the whole time, and I leaned down to Tom Malici the first game, and I was like, Zach's going to lose this one. he should just punt it. And so then it's like, all right, he lost the first one. And then you drop again, and I was like, Tom, I think Zach's going to lose this one, too.
yeah, it's bad.
It was immediately obvious.
Yeah,
There's nothing you could do.
It was not fun, but because of that, like now looking back, like how good Ray's staff was in that deck, I would potentially run a second Ray's staff.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, there are a lot of moments that I would have definitely liked to have a lightsaber back, where like I just get something down to barely any health, and then they shield up, and that ability to just auto damage under with the lightsaber would have been really handy. So I think I would have found space I would have taken disarm out for another Ray staff, and I would have tried to get a lightsaber in.
Yeah.
And just kind of up my odds of getting that 2-cost attachment to put on Ray on that first turn. But
That's good.
That's what I would have changed. So, any other moments from the tournament worth mentioning? I have one in particular that's hilarious.
Man, no, nothing specifically. I think it was great. I'm still amped on it.
Yeah, I loved it. So the day after I played Swiss. The next day you played Swiss. Then the cut day, I played a ton of games because I had to go all the way through the top 4. And then Sunday, you walk up and you're like, "Want to play Destiny?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do actually. Let's do this."
Nice.
But I had one moment in the top 8 where, and it was just a funny little moment. I lost the first game and then I won the second game and we were on the third game, and I had Ray and Han out. Han hadn't activated, and I had one with the Force on Ray, and I had rolled Ray in. So I was showing 2 focus on that and some whatever on Ray, and then a DL-44 was in. And my opponent had a Phasma with 3 upgrades on. Had rolled Balatik in, had 2 dice there, and then rolls Phasma in, and now it has 7 dice in the pool. And I'm like, aha, this is the moment I've been waiting for. So, and it's a really close game. Han's like almost dead. But I overwrite my 1 with the Force, because I was showing plus or 3 on the DL. So I overwrite my 1 with the Force, a 2 focus, and I hadn't rolled Han in, so like, and I've got money, so like this is crazy. And he immediately started to look fishy. It's like, what's happening? I overwrite, take the die out, so now I have DL-44. I'm not going to get a roll in, but now I have 2 actions.
So you played the DL-44.
So I played the DL-44.
So they have to remove a die.
So he has to remove a die. Now he's down to 6. And then I'm like, mind trick. And he's like, so he divides the thing, gets rid of 3. And then I play negotiate with my other action, taking a Ray die out, getting rid of 2 more. He's got 1 left. So he goes from 7 dice to 1 dice. And Han now has 2 shields. And so there's literally no way for him to kill Han.
Wow.
This turn, and also I just nuked his turn. And he's just like, well? So then I take Han, I roll in, and I get a 2 and like a money or whatever, and then I re-roll, and I end up just winning that turn. And so it's just like, it was brutal.
Sometimes
It all
that
came
deck
together.
is wild like that.
Yeah, but he was not prepared, and I was very happy with that. Just like that
That's really
happens.
what it was built for.
DL-44
those
negotiate
moments.
just create some insane turns. DL-44 and mind trick create, but when all 3 hit, it's just like it's dirty. So final thing there, Spirit of Rebellion also came out.
It did.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think we may end up having a whole episode dedicated to this and maybe this topic.
It sounds like it's.
But I at least wanted to
necessary.
mention it. I don't think we have time to dive in because man, I'll preview
Zach
this.
got rinsed. He's got to take a shower
This is
after
all
his
Zach's been
Spirit
talking about all
experience.
morning. That's
Yeah.
why we're laughing so much.
Yeah.
is
Well,
that
so last night
he
was my
saw
first,
some things.
Basically, Spirit had pre-release and had been previewed and whatnot, and I was just like ignoring it. I'm playing Awakenings. I'm playing Awakenings World. And then last night was my first night really interacting with Spirit.
Yeah.
And
Seeing it on the table, playing some people's
so
decks.
I was playing
doing the
against
whole
Tim, and I got 4 games in. And I just had this moment where it was like, I'm not sure I can play Destiny anymore. And to be fair, I took a break, came back, I'm fine now. But I do have a lot of opinions and thoughts that I'm not going to dive into. But from the first moment the game came out, I was like, Starship Graveyard and Ray were immediately like, hey, this is a problem.
Yeah.
This isn't a problem.
Actually cheating in recruitment.
It's
right?
like,
This is
I think
classic.
this is going to get too good. It's just unfortunate. But now, add in Vibra Knife and Ammo Belt and
Force speed.
Force Speed. Yeah.
So
fast
all that it is, Zach. I mean, all that it is
what it is.
the projections. I think that we've had. Like I wrote that article, right, about this exact thing.
Great article, yeah.
Like, what's going on with this? Like, is this really what we want the game to be? And then I think it has all just bared out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there were 4 actions on the first turn of the game that you couldn't respond to.
Yeah, like,
and
so-
that's feels wrong.
Yeah,
It's not fun.
The literal situation, and this obviously won't happen every time, but at the first game, Tim's like, double up, and he goes, And I'm like, okay, this will be interesting. And he goes, fast hands on Ray. I'm like, he's playing Ray Chewbacca, by the way.
Right.
And he's like, fast hands on Ray. I was like, yeah. He's 4 speed on Ray. I was like, yeah, let's give it back. And then he goes, Vibra Knife on Ray. No, he goes, hold out on Ray, Vibra Knife on Ray. Replaces it. And it's like, all right, now he's got 3 actions. Rolls in with Ray. Rolls a special on 4 speed. Triggers fast hands on 4 speed. Uses it. Now he's got 4 actions. I'm like, okay. Rolls Chewbacca in. and he gets 2 melee damage, and he's got the +2 showing on the ray die and a 1 on the vibro knife. And I'm like, okay. He does a reroll, and he's like, 9 unblockable to Han. And he's got a Chewie special showing. I'm like, okay. And then I'm looking at it, and it's like, I didn't get anything. No upgrades. And I'm running my Han Ray deck. I'd adjusted cards for Spirit, and it's like, just no upgrades. And I'm like, so you're telling me, if I roll in with Han, you can Chewie special, turn it to a 3, do 3 to Han, kill Han.
Yeah.
So I literally, before I've taken an action, I can't roll Han in.
Yeah, it's a problem.
And if I roll Ray in and roll a 2, or actually if I just roll Ray in, you can flip it to a 2 and do 2 to Han.
Yeah.
It's like, so pass?
You're teed up.
I have pass. That's my option, is pass. So that was game 1, which is...
Just remove the die, man. You know, just remove the special die.
Yeah, just remove it. That's it. That's all you have to do. So, anyways, more on that later.
Yeah.
I need more time with it. I also need more time to cool down.
Yeah.
So we will revisit.
Yeah, you're fresh off that
Destiny.
one.
But yeah, beware. You know, this is it's a real thing, and I think we're able to get a rat at Hosta pronto.
I sure hope so.
It'll happen in the next month.
Ammo belt. That's
Probably
the second
a
I'll
lot
tell
of
you that
stuff.
story
I
later.
think probably a lot of stuff will come down the pipe. This is the second set that was designed before Awakenings was being played.
Yeah.
Right? So now you've seen Hanrei, you've seen action cheating, you understand how the field looks and how the players are reacting to it, what they're doing with the cards. So you have an entire second set that, as far as I understand, had no external play whatsoever. It had play testing going on,
but didn't have
And I
out
think
in
it was
wild.
Lucas who was saying that it's one thing to have, X number, let's say in the double digits, maybe even low triple digits, testing a product that's about to come out, and versus 30,000 people.
Yeah.
you can increase that number, but ultimately it's going to pale in comparison to the minds of the masses. And so, especially whenever you are developing in that vacuum, you send the stuff out, and it's like, oh, okay, this is how it's actually being used. They have a much better idea, I think, for the third set going on.
Yeah. Well, I'm
I'm
excited.
Zoran on board, which is
Yeah,
really
I'm
exciting.
very excited
Jeremy.
about. I'm very excited
That's
about
a great
Jeremy
add
being
to the
there.
Destiny
He
team.
is.
We have an interview with them coming up, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I
Definitely.
think he's
Very
going to
cool.
be a good voice inside there. He's very practically minded and
Very practical.
sees things
Yeah.
that
Well,
other developers don't see.
As we mentioned earlier, it's one of the most fun games that I've ever played, and
The system is strong.
I'm hopeful that it's not as bad as I think it is, and/or it gets adjusted. I think I've said it from the beginning. I think Ray is eventually going to be a problem, and then immediately it's like Vibro Knife gets spoiled.
Yeah, it's a big problem. And that's the way I felt so similarly with Netrunner, honestly, is like, this system is so amazing. Just please, you see Faust come out and you start to play these games, like, please, no. Like, don't take this thing down just because you overlooked a few things.
Yeah.
So if it gets corrected, yeah, that'll be great. And I think it will. Lucas has said he's very proactive. That's one of the lessons he learned, apparently, from Netrunner. He's
Like,
being
don't wait.
proactive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of pain that can come from waiting. So
X-Wing?
next up, let's talk a little bit about X-Wing. A lot of people have been asking me what I was running. I was actually running the same thing I was running at Hoth. Vader, Quick Draw, Sabak. It's kind of a gimmicky list because I knew I was playing Destiny. That's what I was mainly testing. I had played at Hoth plus like 4 or 5 games with this list, and I had done well at Hoth. And the reality of the list that I was running is heavy Alpha Strike. So it can do a lot of damage up front. The biggest risk is that against TLT and or Miranda.
Oh,
with
Miranda.
bombs-
Yeah.
Oh, Miranda.
Oh, Miranda.
You basically just lose.
Okay, that's a problem.
Because like I don't have auto thrusters. The things I'm doing don't get rid of enough TLTs to like kind of stop it. So I can maybe win against TLTs. Miranda with bombs is just almost impossible. I played like 6 or 7 times the 2 weeks before Worlds against Miranda, against players who had never flown Miranda.
Yeah.
And it was just like not even close. not even close. But I knew it would be fun, and as long as I didn't get paired against those, I actually had a fighting chance. And
Yeah.
so that was my
Roll the dice.
my take. And
yeah.
Imperial's kind of just in a bad spot. But that said, I ended up getting paired against 7 rounds, 4 either Miranda or TLTs. And
Yeah.
actually,
It was big at the tournament.
actually, to my, I guess, chagrin is the word that's coming to brain.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's
to my
correct.
chagrin, one of the times I played against Miranda, actually, I won.
Oh.
And that's basically me winning the world championship right there.
You did it.
It's like I finally did it. But I played against 4, and I ended up going 4-3, so I lost the other 3.
That's a problem.
Which was the bubble, so I didn't make it on points.
I especially love the order of events too, because it's like,
Oh,
what
man.
was it? Did you start out
So I went
2-0?
I went 2-0, and I was like, all right,
All right, feeling good.
feeling good tonight.
Texting us with some
And it's
exclamation
like,
points.
2-0, baby. And then proceeded to get paired against Miranda twice in a row.
Yeah, so 2-2.
So 2-2, and then I was like,
A little less
I
excited.
knew I basically couldn't lose to really have a chance. And we're 4 rounds in, 3 rounds left, and it's like, so...
X-Wing's exhausting, by the way, for those that don't know. Like, you have to stand the whole time, basically,
And they're
it's
longer
exhausting.
games, and it's mentally... It's just exhausting. Yeah, you're right. And so I was like, well, worst case scenario is that I win the next 2 and then lose my last one. Because it was... The Day of Swiss was after my Day of Swiss at Destiny and before the Day of Cut at Destiny.
Yeah.
I was like, but if I go 5-2, then I can play X-Wing on Sunday, and I'm happy. Like, I would love to have that chance because I have been taking X-Wing pretty seriously for the past year. But, anyways, I was like, so hopefully I either lose this round, or I don't lose. That's
For the rest
goal,
of the
right?
tournament, right?
And so I was like, well, I'm a little tense.
You're riding that
I'm
submarine.
tired, and I was like, I know I have an idea. It's like, I'm gonna get a beer. So I got a beer. Played the game of X-Wing. Actually, I played against a lovely lady named Gloria.
Nice.
And it was one of the best games of X-Wing of all time. She was running like Dash and what was the other ship? I don't know. I killed it very quickly. But it came down to her Dash and my Vader. Vader with Lone Wolf and Focus Evade. So like the odds of her doing damage were like low. But there was one turn where I just rolled blank.
Yeah.
Lone Wolf blank. Spend my Evade token, take 2, and Vader's down to 1 health.
Yeah.
So there was literally a 15-minute period where I'm trying to arc dodge because she had the thing on where she can heavy laser cannon from 2 to 3, which is 4 attack dice. But that means she can't shoot at range 1. And so if Vader can be at range 1,
Oh, wow.
You're just natting around.
then I can like just shoot you and at range 1 with my target lock out in the crit, and you can't shoot me back, so I can spend my tokens on offense. And so there's just a kind of positional thing happening where I'm trying to stay at range 1, she's trying to get away so she can just fire a cannon. And so like every 3 turns she would get a shot. And it'd just be like, if I roll blanks, I just die. And it didn't. Eventually, it just got the dash. But that game was excellent. It was like, all right, well, it's worth playing because games like this happen. So I'm just going to keep playing. And I thought, well, it worked last time, so why don't we get another beer? So we did that. Played another game of X-Wing. Had a really good game. Won that game. Now I'm like, oh, man, 4-2. It's like, I'm feeling good. I just want more game, and I can like go into day 2 feeling real good about it. And it worked, so let's get another beer. So got a beer, and then got the pairing, and I'm getting to sit down, meeting the guy. He's really friendly, and we're going along, and I'm like, oh, so what are you playing? And he goes, 3 TLTs and a quad jumper. And I was like, I ragged on our unboxing about this quad jumper for 20 minutes, and you've got 3 TLTs. This is awful. Because the quad jumper has the like action, choose a ship within range 1, give it a tractor beam token. So it's like this little just bug. And it's like, if I get within range 1 of Vader, I just get to take an action and move him in front of a rock and like make him -1 agility. And it's like, so my Alpha Strike, it's like, I'm going to kill the quad jumper.
Yeah.
I may lose this game, but that quad jumper is dead. And then I had this.
Did you do it?
Well, I'm getting there. So Vader fires a homing missile, does damage. Quick draw loses. I use rage to do baffle to lose a shield to immediately take a shot and get another shot. And I have the quad jumper with this as the stealth device, the cloaking device, the scum one that they can lose. So he's rolling a lot of dice, but no tokens. And then I have my Sabak, who's rolling 4 dice with a crack shot, so I can cancel one of his evades. And I need to do 1. I need to do 1. Otherwise, the next turn's painful because now he's going to be at range 1, uses action, tractor beam me, all his TLTs swarm in, it's just bad. So I've got 4 attack dice and a focus, and I'm like, I'm going to get you. 4 blanks. And I was just like...
Right down the line.
I was
Of course
like,
it is.
Okay.
Did you get another beer?
It's gonna be, not yet. That's after the game. So anyways, I didn't kill it. He moves in, puts Sabak in front of a rock. Sabak, as long as he doesn't have 2 damage, gets a 4th attack die. Sabak hits the rock, of course. I roll the crit, which is 1/8, and I take the roll to see if you get another crit. I roll, get another crit. So now not only do I take another crit for 2 damage, now I'm past the damage, so I lose the die.
This is like a karmic thing happening, right? It seems like the same thing happened in Destiny and X-Wing. It's just like the odds of all of this going so wrong, it's very hard to believe.
Yeah, so it was a great game. I ended up getting down to like, he has 2 Y-Wings with like a couple health left that have TLT, and the other ship with a couple health left against Vader. And so I'm in this weird pocket where it's like, I need to be at range 1 of at least one of them so they can't use the TLT.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it just goes so bad. And it did go so bad. Vader just got eaten alive. He's bad against TLTs, it turns out. So that's what
But, you know, the old concession stand got some more beer purchases from
That's
you.
right.
So ultimately, who's the real winner here?
I felt like I won. I met a lot of great people, had a good time. Had
Shirley
some good
Brewery
beers.
got a little bit, you know.
That's right. So there are a couple other notable things that happened in X-Wing besides me going
Indeed
4-3, which is not very notable.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we got to talk about that, don't we?
Yeah. So a big rigmarole at the event. There was a player that was playing on stream, and
This was a non-sanctioned stream. This was like a third-party stream.
Third-party
It's
stream.
Gold Squadron,
probably.
I think it's probably the Gold Squadron stream. And
They do incredible streams.
Yeah,
They do.
it's crazy that just to point out real
shout out
quick, Gold Squadron awesome, but more importantly, because of the deal with LFL, Fantasy Flight Games cannot provide any real help whatsoever for
the
streamers,
streaming of
right?
it unofficially.
Which means that they are paying for cellular data to stream live from the event
All day
out
long.
of their pocket.
Yeah.
On
Well,
their
actually, I
own, which
think-
is a crazy amount of dedication, and they were doing it at Hoth as well.
They also have their Patreon, which I think funds basically
Yeah,
that
but that's great.
exclusively,
That's
which
what
is
it's
great.
for. That's
Yeah.
how it should work, yeah.
So they're streaming, and one of the players, it's like you're activating your last ship, and when that's happening, picks up his dial,
Right.
and you can see him like
Little
do this
sneaky-
a little,
little sneaky
and then all of a
hands.
sudden his ships who had bumped, his last ship doesn't bump, and he has mind links, so he takes a focus, and they all get a focus token.
Not an insignificant difference.
Yeah, and he ended up winning the game, but someone on chat noticed and mentioned it, and then it kind of spread across the
Began
internet
to
like
spiral,
wildfire.
yes.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think one of the logistical problems that happened was it was caught by. Ultimately, FFG found out about it,
Right.
but it was like after the game,
Yeah.
after the results were reported. The next
Caught by
pairings had
someone
been,
who wasn't there.
yeah.
Which
The next
also interesting.
round of pairings had gone up, and so it was this like have to do something and have to do it quickly situation. And so what ended up happening is that that player ended up getting that round he was in automatic loss, was allowed to keep playing, and again you didn't have a judge watching, you just had this like huge
Right.
blow up, and then because of a lot of times if someone was blatantly caught cheating in tournaments I've played in, it would be like, no, this isn't a loss. This is you're out of the tournament.
Yeah.
You're potentially not allowed back in tournaments.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Situation. And so I think because of the kind of soft response that happened on the ground, the community not only had the video, the memes were like
Savage.
bonks,
Yeah.
just savage, but it just kind of like went crazy.
Yeah.
There was a feeling that justice had not been done.
And then,
And
therefore,
when the internet, capital I, feels like justice has not been done, anything is on the table.
Beware, yeah.
Yeah.
People show their worst at that point.
And so I think it's at least worth mentioning because for me it's like you don't want anything at all that incentivizes or even like makes it seem slightly even just in gray or okay that cheating happened. But there's also the line of like the person's
is a
still a
game.
person
These are
and a
people,
human. This
yeah.
is a game.
And honestly, in these kinds of situations, you don't know the full story. You don't
That's
know the
right.
conversation that FFG and this guy had. You don't know what he said, what he was thinking, what his motivations even were. Personally, I think that just in general, you probably have to DQ him from that event because you can't have that player going on to heaven forbid win your finals. We already
Right.
dealt with that with old "this is from him" guy,
Yeah.
and that was the worst. Where you find it out a month after, and he's won your North American Championship.
Yeah.
Like that's a problem. So you probably have to DQ him. I don't know why the decision was made as it was. That's what I mean. I don't know what was said and what transpired.
There's a lot of stuff that
Yeah.
went on
And
behind the scenes.
And I I hope that this kind of situation where you have something like this happen really makes, I know it's been mentioned and tossed out that like a judge handbook and stuff
That's
is
coming in
along.
2015,
It's
isn't it?
2015, I think is when it's coming. But hopefully it makes that a real thing because I think when you start having, whether it's regionals or, regionals at a store, it's like what happens when this happens at a store and like it, I know when something like this happens and people feel like they need to serve justice, the response can be a little too big even in that direction where like you don't want anyone getting hurt or getting harmed. Like,
Personally compromised, yeah.
Yeah.
any of that kind of stuff. So it's just unfortunate, and my greatest hope is that situation, which ultimately didn't end up unfortunate for actually the guy who's playing against is
that's the
originally from
guy
Tulsa.
who really
Yeah, he's
who
a
lost
Tulsa
out
guy.
there. Yeah.
But it's like he
Oklahoma
lost the
City.
round, and they had no way of going back and fixing it.
Yeah.
So
Which also speaks to that tournament software needs to be more adaptable than that.
yeah, because I actually I won't dive into that. That's a different situation. But hopefully, it makes them take the whole situation very seriously.
Yeah.
And we get some kind of like floor rules and how to handle where it's like, if you know that you got cheating, that means you're out of the tournament. It really disincentivizes cheating.
It sure does.
And then if you do get caught and it's on camera, and it's just like,
Sorry.
bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about why that kind of stuff is really good. That there is rules already established, so people know what's happening. Because the minute that you have someone giving their opinion on a topic, you can have a lot of other people saying, "Well, that is unjust," and there's no foundational document for them to go to justify
And
actions either way.
If everyone knows that when you cheat, this is what happens.
Mhm.
If that's what happens and that's how it's resolved, no one feels like justice wasn't served.
Exactly.
Like, I think that's the key there. On the flip side of that, though, on the super positive X-Wing note,
Yeah,
So
super
good.
positive
I had
X-Wing.
to shout
Sunday
out-
was incredible.
Let me just go on the record as saying
hit me with
that
it.
I love one of the things I love, probably top 4 things I've ever experienced in my
Things.
life
all things.
as a tabletop gamer
Okay, now we're down to a category.
is
Box.
the crowd that gathers around the final game of X-Wing.
So good.
It has always been that way, and every year it just gets better. And like you have like cool community members like Nan, who you're about to mention.
That's right.
And just like, and I love X-Wing because I think along with the Netrunner, it's one of the best spectators like things to watch.
It
It's highly
truly
watchable.
is.
But with no hidden information, people can talk. People can whisper. People can nudge each other. People can clap because like
it's like extreme golf.
Yeah,
actually.
it's fantastic. It's really, really cool, and I think the community built up around that because they're not booing anybody; they're cheering everybody, and I think that's really, really cool. And I love seeing it, and I love that energy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love getting
Oh,
to watch
it's
this
so
finals.
cool.
It's
finals every
the
year.
X-Wing community. That's a masterclass in how to do this, and I would really like to know how it all came about because it really happened. I think with a lot of the early adopters,
The
and
flight
early
casual guys, I feel like.
champions,
I know
just set the tone.
Doug was the first champion. He really spearheaded the fly casual.
Yeah.
Even Nan had a shirt on that I think said fly casual in another language.
Sure,
I
nice.
think I'm pretty sure that's what it said. I'm not actually being serious. I think that's what it said. So Nan, for anyone that doesn't know, won
Torfs.
the World Championship this past year running Dingaroo, which is the jump master, which we'll also talk about in a second. But he won last year, and I actually got the chance. We both happened, the day I played Destiny Swiss, we were both walking from the same hotel to World, so we walked and talked for a bit. And he is just exactly what you want out of a world champion, which is just super awesome and super nice. And he came in and he was like, hey, I'm going to build my own list this time. He had net decked the one he won last year with, which doesn't take anything away from him as a player, but people had commented on that. So he's
Yeah.
like, you know what, he flew Miranda. He flew Miranda without bombs.
No bombs, no
With
TLT.
With torpedoes instead. And auto blaster turret. It was awesome. And then he makes it all the way to the finals.
Yeah.
Which is actually, I almost wish that the defending champion just was in the finals, like waiting
Yeah,
at the
like
end as,
a
gym master.
wrestling belt, right?
Yeah, but got to the finals and
Played against Justin.
played
From
against Justin.
Singapore,
From
right?
Singapore.
So Singapore,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
Belgium,
Talk about
which is
world
great.
championship.
Yeah.
And I talked to him on the way, and it's like he made a one-time deal with his wife to come last year, and he won. So then it's like, you got to come back now, and then he had people sponsor him to be able to come.
That's the thing. He had a GoFundMe, I believe, that pays for his
Send
ticket
in
to come.
to-
So the
So
community.
then he
brought
comes
him in,
back with this crazy list and makes it to the finals,
Great.
right?
Fantastic.
And it's his title to lose at this point, and we've already had a Paul Heaver triple crown in a row. But watching him lose that game is exactly the kind of X-Wing and what X-Wing is to me, and why I love X-Wing in that community is that he took it like a champion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he loses, and my favorite moment of probably the whole weekend
Yes.
is his opponent Justin, right? It seems a little bit like shy.
Yeah,
Like,
certainly. I mean, this is the biggest spotlight
Yeah.
for X-Wing, and I don't think there's any bone in his body that thought that he would be winning that
No.
finals.
And so he's just kind of like in shock. And then Nand, makes him grab the trophy.
Yeah, motions over the trophy.
Has him lifted up and is like behind him, cheering him on.
Yeah, as
to,
the whole
celebrate as this huge
audience
crowd
is like
happening.
cheering.
The whole crowd just
And it's
blows
just
up.
like-
yeah.
And he's like holding it over his head and like.
And Nanda's just so happy for him.
Yeah, Nanda's encouraging him to like really celebrate and feel the victory, and then leading the charge in helping that.
And
as
it's
an
just great
audience
to
member.
watch. And
It was
I mean,
It was
I think
perfect interaction,
Yeah.
and Justin just taking it perfectly in stride, and it was just.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful, yeah. It was
Yeah,
one of
it
those
really
really
was.
beautiful moments in the gaming community.
I think it makes you realize why you're here. Right? It's like this kind of human to human interaction and this happening is what makes everything worth it.
Yeah.
Which is great. And so the last note, Justin here running, as you might imagine, Jump Masters.
Jump Masters. Hey, I've heard that word
The
before.
thing I said at Worlds is it's the ship so good that even the FAQs can't. Which I firmly believe. So we had, just to run it down real quick, is we had triple Jump Masters win during the Open Series season last year, just like crazy. It was super oppressive. Then you have Dingaroo that rose, and that's what won Worlds
Yes,
last
they
year.
errated that. Did they errata that?
They errated cards that it used.
And then they were like, all right,
And that's
well,
like
we'll
the
go to
basic
the next
level
one
Jump
up.
Master. And then it was like, all right, well now we'll use Mana Ray with Dengar, and that won Worlds. And it was like, all right, let's
We get rid
let's
of their
fix Mana
cards.
Ray.
Yep.
So now Tell, who's the other Jump Master in this box, is in the winning list. And it's like, you just can't stop the ship.
You can't stop
And
the ship.
it really just speaks. I remember
It's the math equation.
the first time I looked at the ship, I was just like, I don't understand how all of these things are happening, and it's really just unfortunate. So I'm curious to see how they react. I'm of the mind that it's just like, take it in stride. Whoops.
Yeah.
See you later, Jump
See you
Master.
later, yeah,
Like,
Jump
just
Master.
get out of here.
yeah.
But
And honestly, we don't know the circumstances in which the Jump Master was released, because that whole wave had some weird. They were like, seemed like they were pushing it for Christmas and those kinds of things. So
well, that was the one that was like, we'll be here before Christmas, and then came in February.
yeah. So
I was
obviously,
like-
who knows what happened with that? Whether or not they had the time they needed.
And I think the main note for me is just, all right, well, now what?
Yeah.
We've never been to this point with A ship and X-Wing,
Yeah.
which is like, you just can't keep it down.
I mean, can you imagine from Frank and Alex's perspective, where they're like, "All right, we errated the triple jump master in BD," and it's just like, and then you see the other jump master
Just
come up,
creeping
and it's
in.
like, "All right, well, we'll get rid of that."
Well, I
And
can't
then it's
imagine
like,
because I watched Frank watching the game, and he's just like, he's like, oh,
it's like, just being confronted with that.
missed.
Are we
Jan.
taking this podcast long?
We
We're just
are.
going to do
We're
this?
just
All right,
doing
let's
it.
just recap it.
Let's just do it.
Get the LCG out in the
All right.
Imperial Assault.
So
genre.
last hit here, Star Wars LCG and Imperial Assault. Star Wars LCG had Mick and Andy. Mick's a previous world champion. Andy is one of the greatest content creators for
Oh
that game
yeah,
forever.
I love Andy.
And so I was actually very happy, just stoked to see these two in the finals of this game. I have a long history with that game, and to see that the players of that caliber that are so well known, they both have been great for the community. Be in the finals was cool. What I was less stoked to see, again, another one of these, like you see it. I remember Spark of the Rebellion, which is a light set objective
Let
set.
him be, can it be a lesson to designers everywhere? Can
Free.
you just get this
Don't-
in your head?
Don't hit free. So it basically it's an objective that you can look at you trigger it once a turn, look at the top card of your deck, and if it's a 2 cost or less character, or if they have the Spectre trait, which is the Ghost Crew, you can put it into play for free.
So hashtag no free cards here. This
Free
is
is bad.
free is bad.
Forever.
So what happens is
Forever.
game one happens, and it's a great game. The
It
light
is a
side
great
player has
game.
Spark of the Rebellion. He hits it once. He gets a dude out. All right.
How much do these Spectre units cost? Like the good ones? The
3 to
best?
5.
3 to 5.
Woo!
5?
4 is the best. 4 is Kanan, and he has 2 resources on him.
Okay.
So you're just like
Oh,
free. Now you
no.
got 2 money.
Wow.
And
Yikes.
anyways, he's incredible. But
Let me also just come in here
get-
for
get
one
it.
moment. I was cheering for Andy, but not only because I like Andy and Mick was great as well. I knew Andy better, but I talked to Andy's significant other. She was there, and she was like, "I haven't eaten today. Like I can't sit down. Like he's worked so hard for this," and it's just like, "Oh, that's so cool."
well, and like to cap on that, like Andy is you have the guy who makes all the content, and like he almost makes the cut a lot, but like
Yeah.
it never quite goes
Yeah,
his way.
just ready. He was
So
ready for it.
He was just like actually like emotionally, just to be in the cut was
Yeah.
like a moment, and then he makes it to the finals. He
Yeah.
fights his way up that double elimination bracket, and it's like So I was cheering for Andy, and I'm a huge fan of Mick. He's been great. He is great, but again, Andy hasn't won.
Right.
He has to win 2 games in
Andy
a row
hasn't
against a previous champion,
And he wins the first one.
And he wins the first
Oh
one.
my gosh!
It's just
It
like
could
this
be
is a
his
story,
moment.
right?
Yeah.
This is a story.
What a moment.
And then Mick proceeds to light a spark into a massive flame,
Insanity.
which is just free big dude, free big dude, free big dude.
And Andy apparently was winning at this point.
Does that happen 3 times in a row?
I think it was 3 times in a row. And
Hits
it's
the
just,
spark thing
yeah,
where
and
it's like free guy, free guy.
I know
free
that
guy.
it's unlikely that you won't draw upgrades. I mean that you'll hit spark 3 times in a row. But when it happens at the end of a big tournament like that, and just it's just a bummer.
We're gonna talk about we gotta talk about variance, man. I mean, this is what free random effects that might only ever be really abusive 1% of the time. Don't let them be abusive any percent of the time.
Like there's no reason.
Why do we continue?
If you
to
have
do this?
costs, if you have, I mean, the thing is, the whole world is based on management of limited resources. So why do you get rid of that in any sort of card game or game in general?
Yeah, and
Because as soon as you have infinite anything, infinite energy, infinite whatever, like the whole thing falls apart.
yeah, I think
that's what this is.
The hard part for me is like I get the thematic idea of like this ghost crew rolling out.
Yeah.
And like you want them to all be able to be on the table at one time.
Which is cool.
But like when the reality is the game is not, it's sort of like in Destiny with the action economy on Ray. It's like the game is not structured in a way that assumes you'll have 6 actions in a row. The LCG is not structured in such a way that you assume your opponent will have 5 characters out by their second turn.
Right.
Like ever.
Right.
And so when everything has been costed and structured in a way around a normal curve, and then you just totally throw that curve away and it's 10 times stronger.
With no sacrifice, really. I mean, that's really the...
Yeah, it's like, what do you
question.
lose?
Didn't it happen similarly with those reduced by 2, that unit that busted the
freeholders,
game
yeah.
as well, the
Yeah,
freeholders, right? You
Yeah.
know what happened there? Free cost, right? It seems to be this continuous theme that we're seeing, right? Just don't blow up your curves.
Congrats to Mick and Andy, but that is, I would have loved to have seen a tight game in that race.
He was so close, too.
And to be, we have
bummer.
those games, and
We're
Andy
busting them.
fought hard. And to be fair, he came up from the losers bracket, so he has a lot to be happy about.
Sure. And finally, of course, Imperial Assault. Two things of note for me. One
There are 2 things in there.
is that Daniel Taylor, back in the finals, which is awesome, and Paul Heaver, who previously 2 years ago got second, back in the finals.
And he did the North American Championship
And
too,
he
right?
won a
Did he
North
win it?
American- he
Did he
won-
win it? I can't remember if he
like
won
a
it
year
or if he
two
got
ago.
second.
He won one of the years. But I find this cool because, to me, speaking of variance, Imperial Assault, especially Skirmish, is a game that originally was high variance. And now, as the lists have evolved, and it's cool to see the same players kind of making it.
Yeah.
Because that speaks to, same with X-Wing, right?
Yep.
If Paul Heaver can win 3 in a row, if Nan can make it to the finals twice in a row, there's something going on.
It's not just rolling dice.
It's not just rolling dice.
Yep.
So I thought that was cool.
I also thought, from what I was talking to some people about Imperial Assault, and while there wasn't a great spread of factions, within the Scum faction there was a pretty decent, from what I understand, variety of list, which is really cool. And I know that the designers and the developers have been really working on that to try to get that going on. So I'm excited to see what the new release brings.
Well, yeah, speaking of that, they dropped the new release, right?
Yeah,
Or they announced it. And
They announced it.
It's probably the most exciting release they've done.
Everyone I talked to is really stoked for it.
Yeah.
And the key thing to keep in mind too is that this is really a campaign game. I mean, I don't know that we have the numbers or the data on this, but I get the overwhelming feeling that the majority of people buying and playing Imperial Assault are playing the campaign, which is how I would play it if I were really invested in Imperial Assault.
Honestly, so I'm obviously a competitive person, and they're bringing in Ahsoka and Palpatine and Maul and a fixed Vader for Skirmish, and that's all exciting and great, and those are some of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
So sweet. But I'm actually most excited about it for the campaign. Like if you look at that box, and then it's like the tiles are very much like Coruscant. So
Yeah.
I'm pumped.
Yeah.
I love like seedy, lower levels of Coruscant campaign style things.
And they
So
sound like they're going to do some cool stuff for the campaign as well.
Yeah.
They got Palpatine in there. So.
And Ahsoka.
Other thing that I realized about Imperial Assault Skirmish is that I still have absolutely no idea what's happening at any moment.
Well, I think that is...
It's not a good spectator game, really.
No, and I think it's because the points are separate from the board state, which is there's the objective going on with extra points, and there's no... you can't really just tell. Like X-Wing, how many ships are on the board? That's anybody can see.
Yeah.
It's like, well, and like, what kind of face is someone making? But it's like Imperial Assault is always just... right? Am I right? They just have their hand over their mouth, and it's
just
like, I don't know what's happening. They're doing
roll
math.
some things, there's some damage,
So, but yeah, there's Star Wars Worlds, and I will note, in case anyone's listening or watching and wondering, what about Armada? Just gonna put it out there.
Armada's not a tournament game.
Is not a tournament game.
It's a drinking beer with your friends in the shop game.
I mean, we'll just say it. I mean, I know that there's some people that disagree with that, and that's fine. But if you objectively are looking at Armada, it is not built for tournament play. I just don't think it is.
Now, you put your feet up.
The people that were playing, I talked to a guy that was playing Armada, and he was over the moon. But it wasn't because it was this competitive tournament. It was because he was playing against 80 other Armada players.
Right.
Because usually you have 1 or 2 or 3 players who are interested in this big, chunky space battle game. And all of a sudden, you're in a crew of 80 people, and all you're getting is game after game of Armada, which is the greatest thing. But I just don't think you need the context of a tournament to make that awesome for those players, right? Let's have an Armada day, Star Wars Worlds.
Sure.
Maybe a free-for-all open play for whoever wants to. You have a pairing up system.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was great. But the reality of like us, if you're curious if we're going to be posting finals from Armada or anything, it's just not. Filming a game on a 6-foot table that takes 2 hours is just crazy. Like it's very difficult and time consuming. So I just want to mention that in case.
And it is a very good game if that is what you're looking for.
Let me cap off the world segment by saying, which really should have done at the beginning of the episode, but just a huge thank you to everybody who we talked to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, huge thank you to everybody who came up and talked to us, the content creators that were there, getting to spend time with them and catch up with them. Everybody who just we met over the weekend, I think it was exceedingly meaningful for everybody. It always is. Worlds continues to be that kind of experience for us. And it's really, I don't want to see this as a thing. You can't name names.
Right.
I've learned this. There is a number of people who, by name, I could call out, but I don't want to forget anybody, so I'm not going to do that. And even content creators and podcasts that we met up with. But just great work all around. So great to see everybody there. And that is certainly the best part of the event. And if you're ever considering, should I go to Worlds or a big tournament of any kind, it does become more of a cultural phenomenon than a competitive phenomenon. And I think that's the most important thing to understand, is that every one of these communities is about that culture more than it is about the world champion, right? And I think we see that in all these games. And that's, you feel that, and that's real, and I just want to, shout out to everybody who was making us a part of that over the weekend.
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Also, just a quick nod to FFG. I think that Worlds event, we've been to all of them, and they just keep getting better and better.
They're always trying to step it up. Yeah.
Like, you go to bed on time.
Hey.
Tournaments are finishing in reasonable time. Like, we finished the Destiny finals at like 6 or 7 p.m., which was really
startling
nice.
Amount of 96 people per Swiss, ultimately. Like, that was startling to me. I didn't know
low.
that. That was low. Like,
but that was definitely low.
But they did it.
But the general just structure of the event was far better, and I think the streams have continued getting better as well. But to the communities, definitely. I mean, X-Wing and Destiny at this point are 2 of the best communities I've ever interacted with at all. So that's exciting to. And
FFG putting a little prize wall up for so people,
cool.
lots of people can get little presents and deck boxes, whatever. But the attending is itself a thing that you can count on. That you can be rewarded for.
Very cool. Well, it is question time.
Question time.
You can use the hashtag AskCovenant. We will answer those questions right here on the Covenant Cast.
Right here, right now.
Before we answer the questions for this week's show, we have a few answers from a couple episodes ago.
All right.
We asked the listeners, what makes a game fun, the most fun for you? And we had a couple responses we wanted to highlight. First was Spencer Pizzaro on Twitter.
Long-time friend from One Pot.
Great dude.
And it was I guess in response to a different question, which is so funny, not what makes the most fun for you, but do you think poker develops skills more broadly than chess?
Oh, that was the question we asked. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, and his response was, I wish more people played bridge. In many ways, I say it takes the skills from both chess and poker and adds the partnership element, which has interesting implications for deceptive play. Bluffing isn't clear-cut when you're as likely to fool your partner as your opponents.
Cool.
That last sentence was really enlightening to me, because I've often wondered about we learned pitch, maybe, which is you can't communicate with your opponent. You're with your partner, but you are on partnership. And I did not ever think about it as a mechanism to foil bluffing, or at least add another layer of complexity to bluffing.
It's fascinating.
You
don't want to juke your opponent, your friend, and be like, oh, well, you played like you didn't have the 2, and it's like, yeah, but I didn't want them to think that I had the 2. It's very difficult.
And I think that's the one thing we've hit on before, and I think this will be something in the future of tabletop I'm excited to see, which is team-based games.
Yes.
I think there is, so you have poker and chess, right? We've talked about developing different skill sets. And I think team-based games develop a very different skill set that is critical just for functioning in an everyday world of work.
And you still talk very highly about your 2v2 Star Wars LCG days.
Still.
It is the best version of that game.
Yeah.
Unquestionably. So, all right, and then we have Billy Fellon on YouTube, which was, how do you prepare for an event? One of his things he says, my biggest tip probably falls under the sportsmanship category. But that is, put your phone away and have it on silent and don't be on your phone. I understand sometimes it's unavoidable and extenuating circumstances aside, my friends and I both had a few instances at regionals where opponents are talking on the phone for 85% or more of the match.
Really?
Incredibly frustrating.
That's awful.
Yeah.
That's not being able to
have
disconnect.
to TO that. I mean, this is.
I mean, part of the
contrary
reason
to
you're
the
playing
spirit.
is to have an interaction with another human being, and if they are absent, I think that is really disrespectful.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's unacceptable entirely.
And you know, like if someone's in the hospital, maybe just leave, right?
You
like,
gotta get up
like
if somebody's in the hospital. Get up.
Sacrifice
You
the
don't need to be
round.
playing a game.
Yeah.
Be where you are.
I have never experienced that. That would drive me insane.
Yeah, and I definitely understand that, like, I need to send it a text or
Right,
something.
yeah.
But like if you are taking a call during our game, especially in a tournament.
Yeah.
Once you're in a tournament, it's like,
Man, I agree with Billy here. Just turn it on silent.
Yeah.
No
My
text,
phone
no
is
nothing.
always on silent.
And also, you got to worry about, well, you know, who knows? Is the game being live streamed? If you're looking at your phone, like, you never know if somebody on the live stream is texting that person saying you should do X, Y, and Z. So just don't leave any room for interpretation on that. Just turn your phone on silent. Get out of here. You don't need that.
That's not.
Just
Yeah, it's
being
not
alone,
about.
right?
You should be doing this because for the very reason that you would want to be off the phone anyway. You know, it's to disconnect and to connect with other human beings.
disconnect and connect.
Yeah, and so you're sort of.
Whoa, meta.
For real. All right, hashtag Ask Covenant again. That's how you get your question here on the show. So first question, what are some of your favorite Star Wars books?
Oh, great.
All right.
I don't have any answers.
I've got an answer.
The role-playing?
I've got an answer for this one.
Yeah, hey,
I
that's
saw
good.
this.
Yeah.
I saw this one coming down the pipe, and I don't have any that are like made of mostly words, but the cross-section books. Those old Star
What is
Wars. I don't
that?
know if you look them
yeah,
up.
where it like shows
it
it like
like-
a X-wing cut in
Yeah,
half,
or
and
like
you
it
see
had
on
like
the
a
inside.
sand crawler and it's cut in
Oh,
half and like has
cool.
like the little like it's almost like where's Waldo level like magnification.
Yeah.
And it has a little like the rooms that they're in.
You
It
can
has
see
little
inside
descriptions.
lightsabers.
Yeah.
That sounds
Oh, it's
awesome.
so
I don't think I've ever
cool.
seen
Oh my
that.
gosh, I
Yeah.
love it so
It's cool
much.
because it's like, again, what makes Star Wars feel like Star Wars because it feels like a built-out universe, right?
and
A
built
real
out
thing.
gritty like mechanical.
And so when you
universe.
look inside of a sandcrawler or a lightsaber, and it's like, oh, that's how a lightsaber works.
Yeah.
Like,
There's
there's
just,
actually
like,
engineering
wires
here.
there, yeah.
We don't have the crystals exactly, but the rest of it is like actual like, oh, I
It's
get
fascinating.
Yeah, and it's really neat, and you can see, the various, cultures and
that's a great
stuff.
response.
Yeah, I
Great answer.
really like that stuff. I like it in every genre, but Star Wars, I remember even looking at those a long time ago and just capturing my imagination.
Yeah, I think that's the early RPG books were great about like
That's exactly
showing
where I
like,
would
the
go.
world map and
Yeah.
like the galaxy map and stuff.
That was pre-FFG. Who did those? That Wizards? Did they have the rights at
There
that
was
time?
West End,
Oh, yeah.
I think it was the originals, and then it was Wizards, but it may have been.
There was definitely a Star Wars role-playing game that I played that was phenomenal.
Yeah, it just felt right.
just diving into the books was about as far as I got with it. I
Yeah.
think we played a couple of
Well,
scenarios.
I know a lot
but-
of the original RPG book created a lot of the expanded universe, like the legends at this point. Like a lot of the ships and a lot of the planets and a lot of the stuff came from that.
Excellent.
Like it was like we have to make something up, so they just made it. My answer is twofold. I have both a Legends favorite and a
Oh,
canon
Okay.
favorite, as not new canon, but
Not
canon,
new
as,
canon,
as
yeah.
we've been told.
Mr. Zahn, let you
As
know.
Timothy Zahn says, so old, or not old canon, immediately broke my rule.
Got it.
Legends, I have, one book in particular was called Traitor, and it was in the Yuzin Vong series, which is like 20 plus books long.
Wow.
And it's in the middle, but in this moment, one of the main characters gets captured by these aliens. And at the first of every Star Wars book is a list of the characters in the book, so you can like
Oh, that's
understand who's
neat.
in it. It's like
Oh,
the
that's
name and
great.
who they are, right?
Yeah, like
and-
an old Shakespeare play.
Yeah. So you
Oh,
open
Bill
it,
Shakespeare.
and it's like
Billy
book,
Shakes.
book like 12 or 13 of the series, and every time you open a book, it's like 30 characters, right? It's like just all the different characters in the book, and this one is like 3 characters,
Oh.
and it's like, whoa, what is this?
Wow.
Immediately you're like, this is different.
Yeah.
You need to wait like 4 or 5 months to get each next book, right? But it turns out that the whole book is one character torturing one of the main characters, and one of the best line from the book is everything I tell you is a lie, and like just keeps, so like he has no idea what reality is anymore, but it's just this like crazy different experience in Star Wars, and it forever changes this character. He's one of my favorite characters.
Oh, nice.
And
Like a Theon style change?
no, I mean he's not like permanently hurt.
Okay.
His mind is just.
Okay,
That's when he
yeah.
like. He's a Force user, and it's the like. There's no light or dark. There's just the Force character, but then he just gets messed with, and like.
Interesting. So
It's-
trying to take a side almost, like getting stuck between like, is there light side, is there dark side?
Is there good? Is there bad?
Is there bad? Yeah.
Are the aliens
Is all
good?
this
Are
a
we
lie,
good? Is
right?
there just it's just this messed up thing, and the new, not the new. Gosh, in the canon.
Can you believe it happened twice?
I know. He
It's
said he gave the
unbelievable.
preamble and then
Yeah.
just.
So in Legends is traitor, and in the canon,
It is currently the Thrawn book by Timothy Zahn. I
I've heard
cannot.
lots of good things about
I
that.
can't believe that Star Wars publishers ever started anywhere except for with Zahn. He did the Heir to the Empire trilogy, the original Thrawn trilogy back in the day, some of the best Star Wars books ever. And he just has a way of writing that comes across as fully built out as the movies did when they came out. Right?
Understand.
A lot of the
yeah.
books, I've read the Ahsoka book, and I read Heir to the Empire, and I read Lords of the Sith, which is all canon, and there's just something light about them, where it's like, I don't know, it's just light versus Thrawn, which is just like, you've thought out the entire Imperial structure, and the entire, it's like this one random little character has way more built in
Right.
than like just what you're seeing.
Feels like a
Just
living
'cause of this-
universe.
yeah. So he's just fantastic. That book
GM.
is incredible, and that'd be my answer. Those two books.
great.
Is where I'm gonna put it.
Nice.
Question number 2 from Onork on Twitter. With the plethora of Lord of the Rings cards, what would have you found as the most effective way of organizing them? Ultimately, how do you organize cards?
How do you organize specifically Lord of the Rings cards? That's a good question. I usually play with Robert, and he has
Robert's
organized them. Let's see, I think he has all the scenarios and whatnot in chronological order. And then it's just broken down by like spirit, lore, etc.
spheres.
And then I think it's only by cost at that point. You can go like type of card and then cost within type of card. The reality about organizing cards is the following, though. You can't. If you're deck building fairly often, you just need to accept the reality of time savings and having a pocket for the cards that are going in and out often, right? It's like the 10 to 20 cards that it's like, well, if I need more money, I'll throw this in. Or if I'm losing to battles, I'll throw this sword in.
Yeah.
You don't need to put them back in the perfect order every time. I know some people will, but if you're that person, you know that you are.
You know where it is.
But I would say that the thing that's been most effective for me, just in general card organization, is to have some kind of a slot for your go-to rotators, if you will. So like I would have my corroders for Netrunner in that pile, and I would not have a number of cards that I'm probably just never going to touch, like getting in the way of deck building, right? So I think you can do the same thing for most games. But for Lord of the Rings and Arkham, we're doing it by scenarios and chronological, and then your cards.
By like the sphere and cost structure. That's what I've seen from all the books.
And then is it alphabetical within cost?
No, it
It's
could
just
be,
sorta
but there's
like-
no reason. There's
It's
just
just
no
like
reason.
spirit, one costers.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's where you're going. And then with Lord of the Rings, I've seen people tend to put the ones they use more often in the front of that pile instead of alphabetical. So it's kind of a little both systems.
One thing we have learned in both Lord of the Rings and Arkham, because you're combining, you might pull from this scenario and then this one up here to find the matching symbols. If you just leave all of them sleeved and put them in your binder and organize them sleeved, it's way better. And then you can compose the decks, put it together, and play. So making sure all of those encounter cards are sleeved in the same sleeve, that's really handy. Because I've actually seen people that are either unsleeved and then they pull them all out and start sleeving them, which sucks. Or sometimes the mistake would be sleeving them in different like colors, because then when you combine them, it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So leaving your card sleeved is a big deal too. I think you've started doing that as well.
Well, I like in Destiny, I just have all of my cards sleeved in the same sleeve.
Yeah.
Because you only have so many mind probes or force throws or whatever. And so I'll have a proxy with a little piece of card in it that says like mind probe, and then I can just switch cards because they're in the same sleeve. which
Hot
is
swap
really
it.
handy. So-
All right.
All right, final question from Jay on Facebook. Is there financial consideration for game development?
Interesting. I think the main point of this question, and it was we kind of paraphrased it because there was a lot that Jay asked in that. But basically, when a designer, so here's important to know as far as terminology. As far as I understand it, the designer of a game is in charge of the mechanics and the meta view of the entire game, how it's coming about, the direction that it's going, and then choices like FAQ or routed, those kinds of things. So the designer is the main person in charge of a game's success or failure. But then you have developers, and developers are the people that are actually adding the content to the game. So if you're a Destiny developer, you are literally writing the cards and costing them out, and then they would get approved or disapproved, probably by Lucas, and modifications as desired, and then they would go out the door. So I think the question is really getting at, do you design cards as a developer in a way that makes them more profitable for the business? For instance, if I come into a new set, am I thinking to myself, what are the cards that I can make that are going to get people to buy this set the most? Now, that's a really interesting question. So I asked Andrew about this, and we were going to ask him on the podcast last week, but we didn't get around to it. So I asked him off camera, and he said, absolutely not. That whenever the process begins, it's purely about trying to find the best balance, trying to make the best, most exciting cards and getting them out there. But of course, that leaves kind of this door open, which is, reality is, if you're designing the most exciting cards that you can, then that should be the exact same thing as designing cards that are going to sell the most of your game, right? Well, so that's kind of the...
Well, and also the thing you said just now about getting it out there. If you're pricing your product incorrectly, or you're putting too many cards in a box and the shipping is through the roof, like, you are less able to get it out there. So there's really financial considerations in everything.
There's financial in everything.
I was going to say, I think there has to be, but not from a... I would be surprised if the decision was, let's make this card a legendary to sell more of this set in particular.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, if you are making people spend too much money, they will get burnt out, they won't have the budget, they will stop playing your game, and in the long run, that will make you far less money than if you just put out a great product that is approachable, affordable, and something people want to keep buying.
I think we can definitely see the reality of this bear out in Destiny right now. It's a great example because it is the one place where the most iconic Star Wars characters can all live and exist together. But I think if we saw that every set had Vader, Luke, Yoda, like all the main names in different varieties, that to me would start to feel like, well, they're putting all these characters in there just because they know that, like, Yoda, people love Yoda, people love Luke, these kinds of things.
They have not put Yoda in yet.
But it hasn't happened. And we see some of the weirdest characters in the entire canon possible, like early in these games, even in the X-Wing now too, weird ships and those kinds of things. So I think it's about inspiration, motivation.
Sure.
When you come into the meeting and you start designing that next set, is the conversation, what do we want to explore in this set? What's going to be fun for players? What's interesting to us? What
that
feels right
makes
for
you the most
Destiny?
money, though, right?
Yeah. Right. But there's two ways of looking at it, because that meeting could also start with, what's the demographic we're trying to hit? What kind of cards are going to get us the most sales? Like, those, I don't think, are the conversations that are happening. I think it happens organically at, like, the first, and then if they do a good job, they do sell more product. But that's the whole point of games in the first place. Make a good, fun game and people buy it, right?
And I think that's what Andrew is really concentrating on with FFG Studios right now, is allowing the developers to approach it from that direction, with that being the ultimate goal. Is to
it was so great to talk to him.
Yeah, make the best possible game.
I'm excited to watch that interview.
And also, and
so
Lucas
great
has
to
said in our panel interview that he doesn't even think about cost or rarity when he's designing. He thinks about balance, to go to your point.
For a second.
I was going to say,
for
a few
just
seconds.
a little bit. Just a little bit. But
balance goes out the window.
and then he tries to apparently do rarity based on complexity of cards. So whether or not that bears out in reality, that is what he said, and that's
which is a
I
cool
think
little...
his understanding of
I love
things.
that guy. I love Lucas very much.
Well, now we've finally arrived.
We did
we
it.
done it?
We
We've
made
done
it.
it. Yes. Thank you all so much for listening.
Breaking records.
Remember, you
go
can
to
use
Worlds.
#AskCovenant.
Yes. Get out
your
there.
Questions answered. You can also go to Worlds and give us a high
There's
five.
another chance.
Gen Con, we'll be at Gen Con as well.
Of course,
But Gen Con's way wilder.
If you're going to go to one, you probably have to go to Gen Con, though. I mean, Worlds, I couldn't believe it's expensive to get in those events.
Yeah, but Gen Con is a whole different beast.
Yeah, but you got to go to Gen Con.
But Gen Con will constantly attract your attention to various things, but Worlds is really more about the community.
That's true.
I think
Definitely
you have to
true.
go to Gen Con once if you're going to do anything. And then after that, I'm a Worlds guy. I'd much rather the smaller, easier, non-downtown, non-crazy, but they're both fun and exciting. So we're going to get out of here. Not letting these guys take over again. We'd love to hear from you, though. If you could let us know in the comments, what is your favorite tournament moment? We'll read some of those on the next show and answer more questions, of course, with #AskCovenant. Until then, keep playing.